I don't know who needs to hear this, but you're not dumb. You're just studying wrong. Okay, let me give you guys a little backstory. In my 100 level studying nursing, I was very scared and anxious about a lot of things. I was scared of tests, I was scared of exams. This video shows my lecturer pasting our exam result, and you guys can literally see how my hands were trembling as I was recording it. But basically, I had an ineffective study routine. I would basically try to read every single thing. I was pouring things into my brain and stressing my poor brain. But at the end of the day, it did not give me a very bad result, but it drained me and it made me look like my problems. But I was able to break out of this and find an effective study routine that worked for me. It gave me perfect grades, help me approach tests and exams more confidently, and also give me time to be able to do other things that I love aside reading. So that's what I'm going to be sharing in this video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and yeah, let's go straight into the video. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am nurse Afenomi if you're seeing my face for the first time, and in this video I'm basically going to be talking about steps that helped me build a perfect study routine and helped me get perfect grades. First step of understanding anything you're reading is to have a growth mindset. I noticed that a lot of students have a fixed mindset. Now, what's the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset? Let me give an example. If they teach you about the mechanism of labor, how would two people handle it? A person with a fixed mindset will look at that mechanism and be like, yeah, it's too long. I don't think I'm going to understand it. Cram it and just put it in the question paper, but in their head, they already see it as a challenge and they are not willing to put the extra work to understand it. A person with a growth mindset will look at that mechanism of labor and say, okay, I know this is bulky and I know this is a lot to handle right now, but guess what? If I give it time and if I practice, I'm going to understand it. And that was basically the mindset I had in 200 level that changed the game for me. Another thing I want you to understand is that when you approach a new topic in school, there will always be that period where you feel frustrated about the bulkiness of the topic, frustrated about, why it's hard for you to assimilate at that moment. But a person with a growth mindset will look beyond that, knowing that all I need to do is to give this thing time, read more, and then guess what? I'm going to understand it. So I'm going to give another example. Imagine it in a more realistic state. Imagine you want to bake a cake. Baking a cake for the first time, you are definitely not going to achieve what a professional baker is going to achieve. Your cake is going to look like crap. It might taste good, but it will not look professional. Now, somebody with a fixed mindset, at that moment where they are baking the cake and it's taking too much time, pouring things around in the kitchen and everything is looking scattered, and at the end of the day, it still comes out burnt or the middle is still raw. It's just going to be like, yeah, I cannot bake a cake and I'm never doing this again. But somebody with a growth mindset will just look beyond that and say, I will actually try to bake more cakes, and with time, that person is going to get way, way better. This is the only thing you get from this video. Just take it. Develop a growth mindset. Know what is limiting your mindset. Even in the Bible, this is literally the principle of faith. Believing that you can achieve way more than you see. The second thing I want to talk about is learning how to learn. I don't know if I put that English right, but basically trying to understand how well you learn, not me. Because what I'm giving you in this video is what worked for me. It might not work for you. You can use it as a guide. I have a video on my channel. I'm going to be putting it up here where I talked about the different learning styles. I talked about auditory learning, visual learning. If you listen to that video, you're going to understand where exactly you fall. It could be a combination of 2, 3. It could be one particular one. It could be a combination of all. But basically, this video shows you the different learning styles, and then you have to pick the one that works better for you. If you are an auditory learner or a visual learner and you know that you learn better by watching things or hearing things, you can create a study routine around that. When creating that study routine, just understand in your head that it is very, very, very flexible. It could change over time. At the end of the day, what you're doing in 100 level is very different from what you do in 200 level. It's like you're literally climbing up a ladder and things are getting harder and harder. So if you were using a very relaxed method in 100 level, you know that you need to buckle up and change it, especially if you're not understanding. The whole point of creating a study routine is so that you can easily understand what you're reading and still have time to do other things that you like. So if you notice that the method you're using in 100 level is not giving you time to do things that you like, or is not making you really understand what you're doing in 200 level, then this is where you need to change it. So your study routine should be flexible. Now, me in school, when I knew that I was a very, very big auditory and visual learner, I would take out time. Now, our schedule in Department of Nursing was very, very tight. I had classes from 8 a.m. to what was this 6 p.m. I'll be 7 p.m. I can't really remember now, but let's say 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. That means, and I am not a night crawler at all. I sleep at night. I do not read at night because I don't have the capacity to stay up and pick up a book when everywhere is dark. I feel like if everywhere starts getting dark, my brain is just like sleep. So because I knew that about myself and I knew that I was more of an auditory and a visual learner, I would space out my time. Some days I go to class earlier, even if I have like 1 hour before the class starts or 30 minutes, I try to revise or read what was previously taught. After my classes 8 to 6, I'm an auditory learner, remember? So in that class, I am learning. I am not just sleeping or like, oh, let this lecturer get out. I'm actually still learning. And then after the class, if I still feel like staying back for 1 hour, 30 minutes, whatever time I feel like staying back, I would. You have created a growth mindset and you have found a good study routine based on how you learn. The third thing you want to do is to understand the concept of reading and understanding. The brain is not a brick. It's literally an organ that is folded and has the ability to expand and draw in information. One wrong thing people do when they're trying to read something is that they just keep pushing into the brain and they don't try to pull out. I'm going to explain that. Let me divide the brain into two: input and output. Input in reading is you reading your book, watching a lot of videos. Now the output is literally you trying to retrieve what you have learned from your brain. So you've read, you've watched a lot of videos, you've listened to podcasts or whatever, however means you've used to learn. You trying to pull those information out of your brain is you practicing exactly what you've read, practicing asking yourselves questions, teaching people. For me, I used two methods like largely in school: Feynman's technique and active recall. Feynman's technique is hands down the best technique that you can ever use in terms of understanding what you're reading. Feynman's technique is T. Have a growth mindset and indulge Feynman's technique. You're going to be okay. What Feynman is basically saying is that if you can teach whatever you're trying to learn to somebody in the simplest form ever, then guess what? You understand it. It's very, very simple. So basically what is like a cycle. You pick a topic that you want to learn, you spend time reading on that topic. The learning style that you've picked, whether it's auditory, visual, whatever it is, just try to read based on that study routine that you planned for yourself. After reading and then you feel like, oh, I understand this thing, you have to go and teach it to somebody that is basically not in your line of field. So what I do is that when I pick a topic, I want to learn about the human eye, I read about the human eye, I watch videos on it, I practice questions. That's like the output, right? That's me retrieving the information from my brain. That's how I read. After that, I feel like I'm satisfied. I'll now go to my roommate and say, you know what, let me tell you about the eye. Now, this my roommate might not even be a nursing student. It might not even be your roommate. It can be your parents. It can be your siblings. It can be a small child that you just see on the road. Basically, the concept is just trying to say that if you can teach it adequately to somebody that is not in that line of field, that means you're using the simplest term, then guess what? You already know it in your head, and it's going to take a while for that thing to come out of your head because it's sitting in your brain. Now, if you're just pushing information in without, pulling information out of your brain or trying to test your brain, it will sit in your brain for a while, and then guess what? It will vanish because you're not putting your brain to test on that information. So your brain is going to store the information and realize that, wait, you've not been using this for a while, so I might as well just throw it away. Another thing I did was active recall. Active recall is like a way of pulling information out of your brain, testing your brain. Just tell your brain that, okay, this information is a solid one. This information is something that I will need in the future. So please don't throw it away. You can use active recall by answering quiz questions online. You can create your own questions. If you're reading about any system in the body or whatever you're reading about, you can create your questions from your lecturer's slide or from your own notes. You can read about it online. You can use past questions in school if you don't have past questions in school. Basically, create your own questions. So that's not an excuse. Then you also do, or that's still in practice. Practice does not just mean teaching somebody. Practice could also mean you literally doing it. A lot of things in nursing are procedures that are going to be done to actual people, so you can practice it on your roommate, a teddy bear, whatever it is. If you're just constantly reading about how to give intramuscular injection and reading about it and using different textbooks, you will not understand it compared to someone that has read about it and digested it and has practiced it and is still practicing it. If you're ever trying to learn anything and you're like, oh my God, why is this not entering my head? You're not practicing. The fourth thing I'm going to be saying is to break down your reading time. Your brain, like I said, is is a living organism. The way you work and work for a long time and you break down is the same way you can overwork your brain. You need to also take care of your brain. To eat well, you need to sleep well. You need to show the brain that you actually care for it. Like, those are the things that I never really neglected in school. There was nothing that would ever make me, say, I've not slept for 1 week. How? I would just break down. Like, I would actually sleep well. I would make sure that I'm eating well. I'll make sure I'm drinking a lot of water. I'll make sure that when I'm reading and my brain says stop, I would stop. Like, you actually need to take care of your brain. If not, it's not going to be functional for you. So you can break down your reading time. Instead of reading like 7 hours in a stretch, you can read for an hour. You take a 30 minutes break, divided reading like that. So basically, breaking down time and reading in short bursts will help your brain rather than just sitting down and packing everything at once. Discipline some time to study. At the end of the day, the whole reading, understanding everything takes discipline. If you don't have a drive to read, you're basically not going to be helping yourself. That was my goal, that at the end of the week, I had read everything they taught me during that week. So even if I say I want to sleep Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I just know that I'm suffering myself because I must reach my goal. So that means I'm pushing extra times to the other days. But when you break it down and say, oh, I'll read 1 hour every day or 1 hour every 2 days, practice 30 minutes after reading, then you're going to notice that you have a very healthy study time. Your brain is happy with you. You're using information well. You're putting it in information well. You're pulling out the information well, and you totally understand what you're being taught. And you have time to do every other thing, which is the goal of this whole thing. That you're working, you're understanding, and you still have time for yourself.
If this video was helpful for you, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to leave a comment, and I'll see you in my next.